At 11:40 p.m., a bell rang 3 times in the crow's nest. 37 seconds later, the most powerful ship on Earth had begun her death spiral. Steel screamed. Ice tore through the hull with the sound of 1,000 knives dragging across the skin of a floating fortress. In first class, crystal glasses rattled on polished tables. In third class, some passengers didn't even notice. But in that instant, over 2,200 lives were hurtling inexorably toward fate. They had called her the Ship of Dreams. The RMS Titanic stretched 882.5 feet long and 92.5 feet wide, a floating city of luxury and ambition. She was built not for speed, but for dominance. When the Cunard Line unveiled the lightning-fast Lusitania and Mauretania, their rival, the White Star Line responded not with speed but with size and indulgence. Titanic was a statement. The world's largest moving object, a palace at sea, a challenge to nature itself. First-class passengers drank champagne by the dozen. 11-course meals awaited on polished silver trays. Waldorf pudding, peaches in chartreuse jelly, chocolate and vanilla eclairs, French ice cream, each bite an affirmation of human mastery. Burglars summoned diners with the familiar strains of the roast beef of Old England. A single first-class ticket cost $4,350, the equivalent of nearly $70,000 today. Down below, 700 third-class passengers shared just 2 bathtubs. The illusion of equality floated above, a reality carved into decks and compartments where doors could lock a man away from escape. The myth of unsinkable had grown from a single line in a 1911 trade journal. Practically unsinkable when watertight doors were sealed. A myth that bred arrogance, confidence, and eventually disaster. Even fiction had warned them. 14 years earlier, Morgan Robertson's novel Futility told of the Titan, a massive ship labeled unsinkable, colliding with an iceberg in April, with too few lifeboats and more than half the passengers perishing in the icy North Atlantic. The parallels were chilling. The 10th of April 1912, Southampton. The Titanic set sail for New York, Cherbourg, Queenstown. Each stop filled her with eager travelers, cargo, and secrets. 12 dogs boarded the ship. Only 3 survived. William Carter of Pennsylvania shipped a 1,912 Renault CB Coupe de Ville across the Atlantic, a car that would never return. 3,500 bags of mail were loaded, their delivery legally binding even if the ship never reached port. For 4 days, the Ship of Dreams moved like an empire across the water. Then came the iceberg. Atmospheric conditions that night may have created optical illusions. Some researchers later speculated that mirages bent light across the horizon, masking the monster. Perhaps that was why it appeared too late. Perhaps fate was simpler than science. 37 seconds. From first sighting to impact, a single heartbeat stretched across the frozen Atlantic. The collision was immediate. Compartment 6 flooded. Water poured in like a silver torrent. Titanic was built to withstand 4 flooded compartments, not 6. The crew scrambled. Alarms rang. Passengers streamed to the decks. Lifeboats awaited only 1,178 souls. Over 2,200 were aboard. Chaos ignited. The first boats left half full. Women and children first a principal and a death sentence. Jacob, a wealthy New York businessman, was among the first on deck. At 72, he could have claimed a place in a lifeboat, but refused, believing others more deserving. He guided passengers, shared words of calm, and assisted with the evacuation, never knowing that fate had already chosen his final act. Jones, a small-time con artist, had won a steerage ticket through a gamble on horse racing back in Liverpool. Debtors and law enforcement had been closing in. The Titanic promised a fresh start, his cabins for valuables, hoping to buy his passage onto a lifeboat through trickery. But class barriers awaited. Locked gates, corrugated steel doors, a labyrinth of passageways designed to enforce hierarchy. The same rules that kept him alive for hours would eventually seal his fate. James and Melissa, honeymooners traveling second class from Ireland, dreamed of a smooth crossing to New York. Melissa clung to James, refusing to leave his side. James promised a future that would never be. Both would be pushed, pulled, and battered across tilting decks as icy water claimed those too slow or too unlucky to escape. Terence, an engine technician with years at sea, stayed below to keep the power running, the steam pumping, the lights on, even as cold water rose to his knees. He knew every corridor, every hatch, every escape route, but nothing could save the ship, and soon nothing could save him. 3 hours of evacuation passed. Lifeboats were gone, half empty. The bow sank lower. The stern lifted, casting those on deck into the void. Hundreds slid across the steel deck. Some grabbed railings, some prayed, some screamed as they disappeared into freezing water. The water temperature hovered around 28 degrees Fahrenheit. Salt prevented it from freezing solid, but it didn't need to. Death came slowly here, violent shivering, confusion, slurred speech, muscles locking, organ failure sometimes after mere minutes. Only the lucky survived long enough to reach a lifeboat. Chief Baker Charles Jopin drank whiskey before entering the ocean and lived for hours, bobbing in freezing waves, a single human anomaly against the mass of suffering. Nearby, the SS Californian had seen rockets but failed to respond. The RMS Carpathia arrived over 3 hours later. By then, many had succumbed. Only 706 survived. Over 1,500 perished. Recovery ships Mackay Bennett, Minya, Montmagny, Algerine retrieved roughly 337 bodies. Some were buried at sea, 209 were returned to Halifax. Most were never found. The Atlantic claimed them. The stern collapse produced an unimaginable sound, a cacophony of steel under 6,000 pounds per square inches. Survivors in lifeboats reported hearing it even above the wind and waves. The ship didn't just sink, she continued killing after disappearing beneath the surface. J. Bruce Ismay, chairman of the White Star Line, survived by boarding collapsible sea near the final moments. Captain Edward Smith, Thomas Andrews, and countless others did not. The press labeled Ismay a coward, brute Ismay. Official inquiries cleared him of criminal intent, but history had already judged. Dorothy Gibson, survivor and silent film actress, later recreated the disaster in film, wearing the same clothes she had escaped in reality and cinema blending into one. Class divides dictated life aboard Titanic and death. First-class diners survived in greater numbers than steerage passengers. Locked gates separated decks, language barriers, and simple luck determined who lived and who perished. The iceberg scar remained invisible to history for decades. On the 1st of September 1985, 73 years after the sinking, Robert Ballard and a Franco-American team located the wreck 350 nautical miles off Newfoundland at a depth of 12,000 feet. Titanic lay split in two. The stern had collapsed under crushing pressure during descent, a final demonstration of nature's supremacy over human ambition. Even now, she rests, slowly decaying in silence, a monument to arrogance, human error, and the relentless ocean. Planes could not have saved them in 1912. Aviation was too young, incapable of long-range maritime rescue. Only ships could respond, and only too late. The last meals, the dogs, the Renault, the mail, the optical illusions, the whiskey that saved one man, the locked gates that trapped others, all of it was part of a chain reaction. Confidence, complacency, a limited number of lifeboats, human error, nature, class, chaos, ice cold, death. Even today, Titanic teaches one brutal truth. Nothing built by man is unsinkable. The ship of dreams became the ship of nightmares. a frozen monument at the bottom of the Atlantic. And the echoes of that night, the screams, the metal tearing, the frigid waters, the choices and sacrifices still whisper through history, reminding the world of ambition, hubris, and mortality.